Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do an update video for you on the Valiant. Been working on it a little bit, but first off, hope everybody's doing okay, not getting sick during this coronavirus thing. I'm just going to start off in the back and work my way forward, I believe, here. So first up here, went ahead and built me a little battery tray. It's just a 1-inch angle. I welded it into a little box there and then welded it to the floor. Made me some little holes for my J-hooks, a little piece of square tube for a hold down, and it's just a 24F battery. It's one of the cheapest ones at Walmart, so that'll be fine for this. They're 49 bucks, brand new, so definitely gonna give that a shot. Then battery cables, went ahead and set up some. These are just some 2-gauge. It says made in the USA welding cable on it, so should be good stuff. This one, the positive, goes up to the front. I have it run across, and then it's running with the factory wiring harness there to the front, and then I'll show you the front here in a second when we get up there. But that does it for here in the trunk. Got the battery all squared away. Now with these A-bot, with any car, door pins go out. So this one was a pretty bad off. So new door pins and bushings. That actually ended up being a pretty decent project because the bushings are so sensitive, being brass, that they gave me a little headache. I had to buy a couple sets of them before I got it right. Then over here, because of the door pins breaking, this sheet metal on A-bodies is pretty thin. So it's pretty common for these to break. So you can see it cracked all the way around, and I just popped a couple of welds in it just to hold it for now. But there is a plate, or I believe that Classic Industries makes it, maybe Auto Metal Direct, I'm not sure. I'm gonna replace that eventually. This is temporary just to keep it in place and not wiggling around. But the new panel, I believe you cut it out up here, down here, and it's just a thicker piece of metal that you can install there. But those door pins are installed on both sides, and that thing closes like butter. I mean, that is just easy to close, don't have to slam it. Then actually did a few things up here as well. You can see we have throttle cable, kickdown cable, transmission kickdown cable there. Those are just, this is the factory piece here. And what I did is I cut it to length and then put on this piece that's off of an aftermarket unit. And then this is a Chinese made low car replica cable there for the kickdown. I like that style better than the mechanical. It's just easier to deal with. Then up here a little ways we have the alternator mounted, and I had to go through a couple of belts to be able to get the right belt, but ended up with a 15500 Daco. And then the bracket is actually a big block Mopar bracket, and it's chrome, which there's no other way to get them, and I don't like painting chrome because it always comes off, so that's gonna have to stay chrome. Then moving on, I went ahead and put a little breather on here. I'm planning on having a catch can since it's going to be turboed. That way anything that blows out, have a little catch can. And on this side, PCV valve, and I put a couple of zip ties so the boost wouldn't blow it off. Then, as you can see, none of the turbo stuff's on here. So as far as the Y pipe, went ahead and wrapped it with some of the, what is this, fiberglass wrap. This is just the cheap eBay stuff. This is 2-inch wide, two 2-inch wide 50-foot sections was $18 on eBay, so I had to at least give it a try, because the good stuff, the thermos or whatever, I think they're $50 a roll. So I want to go ahead and give that a try. We'll see if it works out. As far as the intake portion, found me just a 90-degree, cut it to fit the way I like. So it's gonna go there with this silicone and then you can see the other silicone on the turbo there. So that'll install on this side. This is going to go have a friend of a friend that has a bead roller, because none of the welding shops here have one. I'm going to bead roll both of these so that the boots don't slide off. And then on my hat, went ahead and decided to use the hat to mount the blow-off valve. So I went ahead and measured everything up, made a hole there. So the blow-off valve will look something like that, only level. But that's gonna go, all this is gonna go to the guy that's got the bead roller, so he's gonna weld that up for me. And then he's gonna put the bead rolls on that. So that section will be done. So if you guys have been following the channel for a little while, you know originally I was going to do an intercooler, and I decided against it because of room and clearance and all that stuff. And with that idea, I was also going to use this heatsink style transmission cooler underneath the car because of room issues. Well, once I get underneath the car and started looking, the drive shaft loop would basically have to go where that needs to mount. So I'm gonna revert back to the old style front mount front mount transmission cooler, and I'll probably just snatch the one off Big Red and put the heatsink one on him, because there's plenty of room up front for that. So just gonna have to run some transmission lines up front for the cooler, and then it'll mount right in front of the radiator like most vehicles. Here's the current state of the downpipe. Went ahead and got the wastegate mounted to it, and it's all welded up. As far as going down, still trying to figure out the fitment issues there. Super tight, so that's still a work in progress. I also have two O2 sensor bungs that I'm going to weld in. They're just little stainless steel units, and the reason for two is because one is going to be for the FiTech EFI, and then the second one will be just in case we make it to a good dyno. Then they'll have a bung to run an O2 off of the dyno. So just a little thought ahead of time. And also this is going to be wrapped with the fiberglass heat wrap. So hopefully that stuff works out good for us and last. I'm going to jump back over here. Forgot to tell you about the battery cable. There's a plug right underneath the master cylinder, and it's a factory plug. Drilled a hole in it the size of the battery cable and ran it straight down to the starter. So that actually worked out perfect. I'm going to use that plug also to run the brake line lock into the cab, and probably the wiring for the FiTech. There is this hole up here from the air conditioner unit that needs to be sealed, and it also is a candidate to run wires through, but I don't like it up here. It doesn't look as clean. If I can hide it down below, it'd be a lot better. And then, I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but there's Mancini Racing A-body to 727 transmission linkage down there for the shifter, and that thing shifts really nice. Sounds really nice. So definitely like that. And the reason the turbo and everything's not on here, because that stuff's actually ready to go on. The reason the manifolds and the turbo's not on is we're just trying to get to leave some room, because some people mentioned about these brake lines not having coils in them, and I am going to redo those, put some coils in it so that they have less chance of breaking. That gives them like some suspension. And also just to wire up the starter, and just to be able to have access to this stuff a little bit easier. The manifold kind of gets in the way, but that's the reason that's not on there. And as far as things left to do, still need a different thermostat housing with a bend in it. I tried one from an early model charger, and the bolt pattern for the LA motors is smaller than the Magnum, so it wouldn't work. Still trying to figure that out. and there is one brake line that needs to be remade because when the subframe connectors went in, the factory location for the brake line was no longer. The subframe connector ran right over where the brake line would have been. So that needs to be remade. And the fuel lines coming from the flex lines to the front, I have the hard line that I'm going to use 3/8 in and return. So those all need to be bent up and placed in their, well, we need to figure out where they're going to go. So, well guys, that's going to about do it for today. Oh, hold on. This super clean stuff, just wanted to mention real quick, I used it on the boat the other day at like a 1:10 or 1:15 ratio to water. That stuff's pretty incredible. So I'll be using that stuff around the shop quite a bit, but it is strong, so you gotta be careful. Well guys, hope you enjoyed this update video. I know most of the time I like to do work on the car in my videos, but this little stuff I didn't think would make for good content. But y'all let me know if y'all want to see everything done in the car. Let me know in the comments. Also give me a like, because you know, it really helps out the channel, helps us get to the top of the search, and help the project get noticed. But that's gonna be it for today, guys. Hopefully see you guys soon. See you next time.